Welcome. What's up? Good to have you with us. This is the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. I'm Erik Stenholm. He's Joey Moore. Both our teams are just killing it since we started this thing, man. Like you're 4-1, Niners looking good. Vikings 4-1 since we started the pod. Both of us at the top of the division. We just got to keep this thing rolling, man. We are killing it. And you went to the game on Sunday. You drove down to Levi's. How was it?
It was electric. Absolute electric factory. Always great to go to the game. Just smells like America at a football stadium. You get the flyovers. You get the 70,000 fans all eating, drinking meat and beer. And, it's just the best of people out there, especially when they win because everyone's in a good mood. But, yeah, no, it does feel great, baby.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. When you look at the box score of that game, you're like, oh, 13-0, another great defensive performance. It felt like, maybe Kyle didn't throw everything he had at the Saints because, hey, you don't really need to do much to beat the Saints. Maybe save some of the best plays for future weeks when you're trying to contend for a Super Bowl. But I think the thing we got to talk about most with the 49ers game was DeMeco Ryans throwing another second-half shutout, a masterpiece from the D coordinator who isn't going to be your defensive coordinator for much longer.
No, that's the only downside about his just meteoric rise. But yeah, I mean, they were fantastic. Obviously, shutout in the second half, shutout in the first half, shutout 4 quarters, and when you do that, you win. But yeah, he was fantastic. They got a couple timely turnovers. Another Dre Greenlaw held a guy up at the goal line, and in comes the big bad wolf, Talanoa Hufanga, puts his head on the football, and I don't care who you are, you're not hanging on to that football. Couple questionable penalties helped out the 49ers for sure, defensively. But yeah, you pitch a shutout, big zero, missed field goal too by the Saints. It's a good thing they pitched a shutout because, as you said, the offense maybe like to score a bit more than 13 points. Again, we had the Arizona game. You think things are rolling in the right track, but 13. Judging on Kyle's post-game comments, he said very complimentary things about the Saints defense, and yeah, they're good, but he kind of admitted to coaching as long as we just don't turn the ball over, we're gonna win. It's okay. What happens if the Saints on one of those 4th down plays get in the end zone? It's 13-7, a touchdown and an extra point, you lose. Another bad news, Elijah Mitchell's now done for the year, so that hurt. 1-2 punch in the backfield. No longer. Be pretty sweet if Jeff Wilson Jr. was playing for us this week, but he's not. Although Jordan Mason did look good. I liked him in the preseason, but there's a reason why he hasn't played. And then McCaffrey, I didn't realize until this morning, but McCaffrey left with knee. They said not tendonitis, but knee. I don't know, soreness. They said he's fine, but that's done not good.
Yeah.
And then what? But
yeah, you're one significant McCaffrey injury away from that being a problem. But right now, there's no problems there with you being 7-4 atop the division. You got help with the Seattle loss. So you're now alone atop the division, and you have the tiebreaker over Seattle. So you got to be feeling good about that. Obviously, the Mitchell injury sucks, but Niners defense looking like one of the 5 best units in the NFL right now. It's been, 4 weeks, no second half points allowed. I can't remember the last time we've had – that's one of those stats that you see and you're like, I got to double check this. And then you look back, you're like, oh, my God, they haven't given up a point in 100 minutes of second half football. Got to be feeling pretty good heading into next week's game against your old buddy, Mike McDaniel.
I purposely wore the glasses today to support Mike McDaniel. Yeah, no, they're going to be tested because it'll be the best team they've played since they were mollywopped by the Chiefs. I'd like to think that 7-4 looks nice, point differential looks good, but you look at their schedule, they've really only played the Chiefs. Those 2 wins against the Rams just look worse and worse.
Right.
They beat Seattle, but maybe Seattle starting to come back to regressing to the mean. They beat Carolina. Who cares? They also lost to Chicago and Denver and Atlanta. And killed Arizona again. Not great. So we'll see against Miami.
It's
We will
crazy
see.
because the Niners are probably considered one of the 3 top contenders or 4 top contenders in the NFC. The Vikings, who would be considered in that group as well, definitely did not have a convincing performance. It's much like, the Niners, you look back at their schedule, you go, oh, we lost to Chicago. We lost to, everyone other than Kansas City that you lost to is not a very good team. You look at the Vikings, we play a team in the Patriots who could not score an offensive point against the Jets at home in New England the week before. They come into Minnesota and they put up 26 points. Mac Jones threw for 1,000,000 yards. I believe it was, 382. The Vikings defense looked awful, but uncharacteristically, a Bill Belichick team made a ton of mistakes to give us the game. We returned a kickoff for a touchdown. There were 2 roughing the punters, one of which led to 7 points. There was 2 punts that the punter for New England hit, and I was like, why is this guy in the NFL? I think he had like a 23 and 27-yard punt. Uncharacteristic mistakes from New England gives the Vikings the victory, and with us being at 9-2 now, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, man. Like, how good is my team? Obviously, our record is really good, but if you look at the results and if you just watch the tape, you're like, God, when are we going to really get tested? Other than the Cowboys game when we got smoked, really haven't beaten any teams that have been just like world beaters coming in. So I feel like we're kind of in the same boat right now. What did you see on that Thursday night game, Vikings Patriots?
Yeah, a lot of the same. But I do think the Patriots are a little bit better than people do think. That game against the Jets, from what I understood, was played in pretty severe wind, probably. And then you go to the Dome in Minnesota, probably helped Mac Jones a little bit, helped him to 382 yards. That's a lot. But
no weapons other than Ramondre Stevenson on that team either. It's not like, they're throwing up Moss and Welker out there, like really rough on the outside for the Vikings, who admittedly are injured at corner, but Mac Jones was carving us up.
Yeah. No, he looked as good as he's looked in a while. The Minnesota defense, doesn't help the narrative that, can't stop anybody. But Vikings looks good on offense. Scored 30 plus again. Kirk primetime Cousins. I saw got the game ball.
Yeah.
His coach too. I saw was like, I heard it was played after this time. That's primetime Kirk Cousins, and I was like, that's pretty cool. But it's a much tougher game than I think. Like short week, like Christian Darrisaw got hurt, like Matthew G, like Bill Belichick, like it's not nothing. It was not. And again, like, you see Philly lose to Washington at home, although Washington is in the playoffs right now. So that's not like a horrible loss, but yeah, like anyone can beat anyone. And to win on a short week, Thanksgiving, I don't know what the schedule looks like for NFL players Thanksgiving week. Like they usually get Tuesdays off, probably don't. I don't know how that works, but yeah, it was impressive to me.
Yeah, it showed some resolve. It showed that this is, I feel like there's maybe 7 or 8 games this year where if Mike Zimmer was the coach, the Vikings wouldn't have won, because this team is so positive, and like his whole thing was the old school negative coaching, like get your head out of your ass, you need to make that play. And now we have this more modern Sean McVay style team where it's, positivity and spreading the ball around and relying on your teammates and whatnot. And that's all great, but we got to get that secondary figured out if we're going to go far in the playoffs. Obviously, with the Packers and Lions losing yet again, it's like we do have basically the final 6 weeks of the season to just get everybody healthy, try to get that home playoff game, secured, maybe try to flirt with home field advantage, but Philly's looking pretty unbeatable right now. You mentioned that the Patriots are actually, you thought they're a little bit better than what I was giving them credit for. I'm thinking all of a sudden the AFC is incredibly deep. The Chiefs, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Bengals, the Chargers, and the Jets all won last week. And then the Titans and Ravens lost super close games. It seems like the AFC is, maybe 8 of the top 11 teams in power ratings. I would imagine right now with all the quarterback play that's going on in the AFC. It's pretty easy to tell that the Chiefs are number one, but after that, it is a real dogfight for like who is going to be in the AFC, Chiefs Invitational right now. It's tough to parse.
Yeah, there's no question the AFC is the premier conference right now. Jets bench Zach Wilson, and in comes Mike White, and
legendary.
The Chargers one is the most impressive to me. I know they played Arizona, but they have so many injuries still, and I'm pretty shocked even with Herbert and some of the talent they still have that they're still in it. My Tennessee power ranking team, but I think I had them too last week. I didn't see the game.
To tell you.
I didn't see too much of the game. I felt really good about Tennessee, and then Mixon and Chase both didn't play, and they still lost. So
it's not a very dynamic team. Obviously, they played really well in that game where they beat up the Packers, but that win is looking less and less impressive by the week. Tennessee's definitely dropping in the power ratings, but they're still, especially with Indianapolis being so terrible, they're still going to host a playoff game. So we got to keep them in mind. And the Ravens, too. I mean, they still control their own destiny. They have an incredibly easy schedule, even though they lost that game to Jacksonville. But it's getting really tough to figure out how the AFC is going to land, because for this whole season, we're like, oh, it's a foregone conclusion, the 1 and 2 seeds of the Chiefs and the Bills. I mean, look out for the Dolphins, look out for the Bengals right now, because they're trying to crash the party.
I'm very high on Miami. Hopefully they bomb this week, but I don't think they will. Buffalo and Baltimore are the two that kind of smell a little off track to me. We were definitely on Detroit last week, but
we love Detroit in that game.
But and a good amount of that's because I really do like Detroit and what they're doing. But part of that was like Buffalo, something's off. Something's off. They're going to now lose Von Miller for, maybe the season, but at least a few weeks, if not a month plus. Baltimore, it's a horrendous loss yesterday, and they've had like 3 horrendous losses, and it's just one of those.
They're the first team ever to blow 4 fourth quarter double-digit leads in a season, and it's only week 12. I mean, their defense is a problem.
Like, yeah, you'd like your defense to stop, but again, there's a reason why they haven't paid Lamar Jackson, and it's not because they don't have the funds, like maybe a franchise like the Oakland Raiders would, but like there's something there with. I'm not going to say directly with Lamar. I mean, he's a great guy. Like, obviously responded to a troll last night. Maybe just lay off the Twitter, Lamar. It's not a real place, but like, yeah,
he's so relatable though. Like,
it is like
he works his ass off, and he's like, "Do you know how hard I work?"
It's so relatable. Like, I have said, like, I wanted to say it to a million people, like, but just there's no history of it because they don't put it on Twitter. Like, yeah, I mean, if somebody recorded me yelling at the TV, I'd probably say a lot of mean things, but I don't put it in writing and send it to millions of people. If I said it, no one cares except our fans. But and Lamar's got way more fans than I do. So, but like, yeah, like they showed it today. I saw in the highlights. He missed Mark Andrews in the end zone. Like it's something. It's just off. I don't know if the contract thing is playing into it, but if you expect 250 plus guaranteed million, number one, you can't blow 4 double-digit leads in the fourth quarter. It's just part of that's defense, but part of that's you, and you can't go on Twitter and tell your fans to eat dick. Can't do it. Do not do it, Lamar.
Yeah, that was a rough look. And I on the whole, I really do like Lamar, and somebody is going to pay him that money. You would imagine it would be Baltimore, but so many teams would love to have Lamar. But yeah, that fourth quarter collapse thing is kind of becoming the story of their season. It feels like last year's Vikings, where we had the lead, and I think it was 15 out of 17 games, and just continually blew it over and over. But they're still 7-4. They're still atop the division, and that AFC is a mess right now. Anybody could be the 2 seed right now. I think Kansas City controls home field for sure. And then in the NFC, I'm pretty sure I'm ready to just call it and say now it's a 4-horse race. My Vikings, your Niners, and then Philly and Dallas. Whoever comes out of the NFC East will obviously have the inside track and likely have home field advantage. Are you ready to say it's a 4-horse race? It's time to write off, teams like Tampa Bay, Seattle, Giants, Washington.
I mean, there's a clear gap between those 4 and the rest. I mean, sure, yeah. I mean, Washington, the Giants, they're not. I think they're better than what we think. Like the Giants aren't terrible. Like I don't think they're gonna finish like 8 and 9, or something like that. I think they're gonna be a decent playoff team. But yeah, there's a big difference between those 4 and the rest. Tom Brady and the Bucks had a horrible day.
It was rough. That's probably the game I watched the most of besides the Vikings this weekend, and I just kept waiting for that offense to do something. It's very clear that Cleveland's defense can't stop the run. So obviously, Leftwich and Todd Bowles were like, "Hey, let's run the ball." But
people were crushing Todd Bowles for the end of the stuff with the timeouts. With Brady, he kind of said something like, "Well, I just, in case he threw an interception," and everyone was like, "Tom Brady hasn't thrown a fourth quarter interception in like 497 years."
Yeah.
So, incorrect answer.
That's another thing that, like, I guess, I mean, the betting markets and everybody who writes about sports didn't take this into account much in the preseason, but the drop from Bruce Arians to Todd Bowles is actually pretty large. We just assumed, as we always do, like, oh, the coach doesn't really matter that much because it's Brady there. But like, it has been a very large drop off from last year when Brady threw for 5,000 yards and 44 touchdowns. And this year, I mean, there's been injuries for sure, but that head coaching drop off has basically been the difference between them being a contender, which I tried to make the case for last week, and now being, I mean, you're 5-6. You're not going to host you might host one playoff game, but you're not going to host a second round playoff game or a third round playoff game. I think they're toast.
Whoever gets that, I mean, I actually think Dallas is better than Philly, as crazy as that is. Because Philly did beat them already. It'd be interesting to see what happens when they play again. But I don't think Dallas, unless they win that game and somehow Philly, which possibly, but I'm pretty convinced that Phillies, if they don't, Minnesota might catch them for the 1 seed. I don't think Dallas, 2 games behind, right, at 8-3. Unless because if they don't win that game, they're not going to have the tiebreaker because then they're going to be like 3 games back.
Right.
I don't think they're making that up. Philly's 10-1. Like, how many more games are they going to lose?
I was looking
Dallas
at it.
Dallas is going to get Tampa or Atlanta,
right.
And like whoever, like Tampa, I thought they were kind of done, and then they kind of won. And I was like, okay, they're going to win the division, and then they lose again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're only a half game ahead of Atlanta, and
Atlanta, who, by the way, I mean, obviously they perform well in their game against you, but Atlanta is awful. Like, in a normal season, they would be like 6-10.
I absolutely hate making excuses. I absolutely hate it. Everyone has injuries, but that one, we were at the lowest point in the amount of injuries we had, and they were all like on the defensive line, because that was like Armstead, who sounds like he's gonna be back this week, Kinlaw, who may never play again, and Ebukam also missed that game. Like they've missed. Ebukam came back this week, but he's missed like 3 weeks in a row. Armstead and Kinlaw have been out. I mean, I don't even remember the last time they played. And then that was the one game that Bosa also missed. So like everyone was hurt on the defensive line. And with Atlanta, they were like, that was the game, the post game, like beers with the coach. And like, yeah, well, we had backups. Like, I mean, literally like backups of the backups. And they just pounded us. And we still had a chance to win. Offense had probably their worst game of the season, that game, but they're not good. And
that's the point, is Atlanta is bad. As we saw in the Saints game last week at Levi's, the Saints are bad. Carolina, they beat the completely DOA Russell Wilson and the Broncos.
They're Mike Purcell's team. They're Mike Purcell's team now.
When I saw that clip of Broncos defensive lineman Mike Purcell coming over and just screaming at Russell Wilson, I said, Joey's going to want to talk about that for the entire podcast. And
I could, but I won't. I'm going to restrain myself.
Yeah. I mean, it's like beating a dead horse. There's nothing left to say. I mean, the team hates Russell. The offense sucks. The offensive coordinator and the head coach suck. Everything about that team has gone down the drain.
Not to get too far into that, down that rat hole, because I could. But like Mike Purcell screaming at Russell Wilson is like the least, I guess, biggest takeaway from that. I think it's obviously it's what caused the situation. Number one is that the fact that it's like a defensive tackle screaming at the quarterback, and it's not like Aaron Donald defensive tackle or like somebody like, not to say Mike Purcell's not a, functional player in the NFL, like he clearly is. He plays for one of the best defenses in the league. But to have him go right up behind the head coach, like that's what I took. Nathaniel Hackett's right there. Like Nathaniel Hackett's probably like, you know what, good for Mike, because that's why I don't have to do it, because this guy's going to get me fired. And he's gotten every single offensive coordinator in his life fired, and he's going to have me blow my first head coach. Is Nathaniel Hackett the greatest coach ever? Probably not. But I mean, he's probably feeling a little bitter that Russell Wilson has like sabotaged his coaching career. The other thing is like not one player got in there to say, hey, well, he was like, nope, Mike Purcell's going to, it's almost like they paid him to do it. Like you can be the guy that's going to say it. Cause he walked, and Russell Wilson, I'm not going to say he looked scared, but he looked like there was no like,
yeah, buddy. Okay. Yeah.
And someone
He's just nodding.
Someone said, if you look close enough, I think he said, let's ride. And I'm like, he probably like,
it's not good. And the thing that I kept saying was, I was trying to analyze, like, I wonder what he said, and I guarantee you it was just score some fucking points. I
tried to find it, like, what play that happened after, because like Russell Wilson's on the sideline, so it had to be a defensive play, like that Purcell comes off the field. Like, was it a third down stop that he said, we're doing our job, like, do yours? It had to be something like that.
I mean, it's Carolina, who is 4-8 and has an interim coach and
Sam
is
Darnold
actively trying to get a new quarterback. They're trying to go, 6-11 or worse, and they still couldn't muster any more than, I mean, how many points they scored yesterday? 10 points. I mean, and it was garbage time touchdown too. Absolute disaster in Denver. But the point being there is the NFC South might be the worst division since they went to the 8 division alignment in 2002. Like, I mean, the only other candidate would be 2010 NFC West when the Seahawks won at 7-9, but this seems worse. I mean, that NFC East a couple years ago.
The football team did it a couple years ago, but I don't think it was as the stink kind of goes away if you come like the commander or the football team at the time, I don't know, were they gave Tampa, who ended up winning the Super Bowl, like they gave them a decent game. Like, so it kind of like, okay, and then Seattle with, Marshawn, they win a playoff game. So it's like, okay, the division sucked, but we won a playoff game. So
it's going to be, if Atlanta somehow wins the division, they are going to get rocked by Dallas or Philly, whoever the 5 seed is. If it's Tampa Bay, because it's Brady, you expect it to be a competitive game. But the way I'm looking at it right now, that might be the worst
Tampa
division.
Lost Tristan Wirfs, high ankle sprain, which is like apparently one of the new, like, in like pitchers in baseball, like, or think it was like baseball in general was like the oblique. And I was like, everyone started, I'm like, I never even heard of that muscle before. And then I just, like, ankle sprain. Nope, he got high ankle sprain. I'm like,
it's like that everybody in baseball was like breaking their hamate bone for like 6 weeks. I'm like, what the hell is a hamate bone? It's like everybody, has one in their hand, and after so many swings, it just breaks, and then you're out for 6 weeks. I'm like, oh, great.
But yeah, no, the South is
it's a tire fire.
If it wasn't for the Titans, you could also say the AFC South, but Tennessee's not.
Yeah, well coached team. They'll be in the playoffs. They'll be 10-7, something like that. It's not as bad. So there were 3 Thursday games last week for Thanksgiving. They added that third game, I believe, in like 2010, 2011. It was always just Dallas and the Lions, but now they added the third game. The rumors are they're going to add Black Friday games next year. Next year, it's just going to be 1 game on Amazon, but they're talking about maybe adding more than 1 so that there would be, 5 to 6 midweek games starting next year on the week of Thanksgiving. And I was going to ask you, as you and I are top 1% of top 1% consumers of the NFL, is it beginning to be too much with there being that many different broadcasts happening in a 2-day span on Thursday and Friday, and then again on Sunday? Like, are there enough good broadcasters to pull this off? Are we oversaturating the market by having, this many midweek games as Amazon enters the fray?
Hell no. I found myself this Black Friday like, was it next year? Did they say, or is it this year? Like, is there one today? I hope there is, because what else am I going to do? And it's like, nope, it was next year. I agree. If they had like 3, like back to back 3, like I would pump the brakes on maybe that.
Mhm.
Because part of the reason why, business is booming. What is this, the Cowboys Giants set the all time record at 42 million? Like, why not? Like,
Right.
I don't know, Black Friday, but make it a Raider thing. I don't know, Black Friday with the Raiders and the black jerseys, and it's going to be the Black Friday thing on Amazon. And it's, like Detroit and Dallas gets Thanksgiving, we'll have, the Raiders and the black hole on Black Friday. I don't know. Put him against Russell Wilson. I think people will sign up for Black Friday to watch him in that tire fire or whoever you want. I don't care. Yes. Like,
the reason I bring it up, I knew you were going to say that, by the way, because nobody likes the NFL more than you. I mean, I'm close. I'm right up there.
The thing is a lot of people do. Like,
yeah,
like,
it's like 99 of the top 100 rated television shows are NFL games.
Yeah, I watch a lot, but like, there are a lot of football podcasts. There's a lot of football people. There's a lot of, like, stadiums are selling out. Most of them, some of them, but yeah, I like the NFL a couple years ago. Had a little dip. With the concussions. Maybe people not so happy with 49er legend Kaepernick. Whatever. But business is booming right now. We are back, baby. That all went away because people aren't turning off the TVs anymore.
No. Everybody who said I'm off the NFL because of Kaepernick or I'm off the NFL because of
I saw Will Smith in concussion.
Yeah,
and I didn't like it.
Every one of them is back, and more people. It's like every time we thought.
What has helped is like the other sports too, like
right.
Like I went to the game with Kayla's cousins and they used to be like big like Warrior basketball. Like they don't even watch. Like, and the Warriors are like the one team, like, okay, they're like NBA proof. Like, no matter what happens in the NBA, like, even if you're in the Bay Area and you're a Warrior fan, like, you're going to watch. Nope. Like, and it's not even like it's just like,
it's like football's on.
Yeah, it's like exactly football.
It could be NBA Finals Game 7 or Jaguars Titans on Thursday night, and people are like, well, maybe we'll put that on the bottom right corner. Put that on the other TV.
I give the players a lot of credit in the NFL. They do seem like, for the most part, seem like guys you'd want to hang out with. There are some, obviously, you wouldn't. But, I don't know. Not to go on a whole NBA tangent, but, like, you couldn't pay me to hang out with most of the people in the NBA because they seem, why are they so unhappy? And I think that's why the NFL, like, like, if you want to cry, and like Debo all offseason cried, wanted to trade.
It all goes down to there being 53 guys and 20 coaches in the NFL. And then in the NBA, you got 12 guys and like 3 coaches. Like, if you have a small group and one person is acting out, it can ruin the whole team. But when you got 75 guys in a locker room, like, you have to come together or the whole thing falls apart. So, like, I feel like
there's no load management in the NFL.
Yeah, you see a touchdown
celebration. You don't work all year, lift all them weights, run all those miles to sit out on Sunday. I mean, there's only 17 of them.
Yeah, that's why we love it. My point when I was asking about if Black Friday and adding more games on more days of the week is too much is not necessarily because the product is, diluted or anything. It's awesome. It's at its peak right now. It's, do we have enough good broadcast teams? Because we would then need 6 for those 6 games. So I was going to say, why don't you and I rank the top 5 broadcast teams, like our favorites, because it's tough to do. I was trying to do it in my head earlier. And like, obviously there's certain play-by-play guys you lean towards and certain color guys you lean towards. Like, I used to love Al Michaels and John Madden, obviously Pat Summerall and John Madden. Anybody with Madden was going to be good. But then there was like Jim Nantz I didn't like, but then once he was with Romo, he got so much better because it turns out I didn't really
Romo
like
made
Phil
him
Simms.
Less of a stiff.
Exactly. Like Phil Simms made Jim Nantz worse, but when you put him with Romo, he got better. So, like, let's try to.
Jim, here we go. We got a third down. Jim, it's so exciting.
That's a good Tony. Tony has such a high pitched voice. Like,
what are they going to do here, Jim?
He was like, "Oh my God, he's in the slot." And you're like, wow.
I love it when Jim's talking and Tony Romo just starts drawing on the telestrator. Like during he's like, "This guy's coming."
Yeah. And it was like when he first started doing it, I was like, damn, Romo knows exactly what's happening on every play. Now it's literally every play. He's like, oh, look at that guy on the left there, Jim. I'm like, it's just the run up the middle.
He'll get so excited he won't stop talking, and then he probably hears in the headset like we're going to break, and then he just like usually it's Nance like, and we'll be back after this break from Gillette Fusion hair gel or whatever, and he doesn't even get to that part because Tony's like, what are they going to do here, Jim? I don't know. And then we'll be back to see what happens.
In that vein, top 5 broadcast teams. For me, number 1, I mean, this might be a little controversial, but I think it's Buck and Aikman. I think you.
Oh, I agree.
Okay.
No,
I used to be a Joe Buck hater, not anymore.
People hate him. I don't really know why. I mean,
they used to hate him because it was nepotism, because his dad he only got the job so young because of his dad. But still, he's really good.
I get it. I mean, I get it. I don't know. Like my criteria simply was like when I hear their voice, do I feel like this is a big freaking deal?
Right.
And when I hear his voice, it's a big freaking deal.
Right.
And
yeah,
they're mine.
It's saved Monday Night Football because it was in the dumps for the last 5 or 7 years. And now with Buck and Aikman there, it just feels like a huge game every week, even if it's freaking Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, which is an absolute dumpster fire game. But everybody's tuning in because, it's Monday night, it's Buck and Aikman. It feels like a good one. My second would probably be Tirico and Collinsworth at the moment. I loved it better when it was Michaels and Collinsworth, but I do like Tirico. So I'm going to put them at number 2. What would be your number 2? Going Nance and Romo?
No. But I'm not going Tirico either. I think they've been good enough already. I mean, I loved them separately anyways.
Yes.
But Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit are really good. Like, Al Michaels got paid so much money, does not care. And
that's the thing. He's changed.
Herbstreit, like, you could tell, like, one thing I appreciate about Kirk is, like, he obviously has been ESPN's top college guy. But, like, that doesn't mean you're going to be good at the NFL. Like, like, you have to know the play. Like, you could talk X's and O's, whatever, but, like, he clearly studies. Like, he has all the charisma that, like, he has all the confidence in the world from, college. He's there. I think they're great. I think they're great.
I was going to put them at number 3. I debated putting them number 2. The reason is Al Michaels has always been my favorite play-by-play. Now that he's not with Madden and not with Collinsworth, I have to drop him a rung. But he has just become unhinged in such a positive way since he's been on Amazon. He's talking about the betting lines like he always would, like, allude to. Now he's, like, serious about it. He's joking. He's, like, openly trashing bad games, which is, like, he would never do that when he was on NBC. If it was like 38-3, he'd be like, when are we going to be done with this thing? Like, now he's just unleashed on Amazon to just say whatever the hell he wants. That Washington-Chicago game and the Indy-Denver game, he spent an hour just being like, oh God, when is this one going to end? And another pass sails over. My goodness. Like, I love that he's been unleashed since he's been on Amazon. So yeah, I would put them 3. And then 3 for you has got to be Nance and Romo then, right? Or are you going, and then you would have Tirico, Collinsworth 4.
But the thing is, I like Tirico and Collinsworth. I think, like, they're solid. Honestly, like, what other sports league can have like 4 or 5? I mean, if Tirico and Collinsworth are calling the Super Bowl, like, I'm not like, oh, I'm going to listen to the radio. Like,
which is most of the reason I wanted to bring this up is the drop off after that is enormous. I don't think it is. And Olsen. You like Burkhart and Olsen?
No, see, this might be, I could switch it up. This might be my feels great baby take. I think they're fantastic.
Really?
Like, I honestly feel bad for Greg Olsen that he's going to get booted for Tom Brady. Because, again, we don't know that Tom Brady is going to be good at this. Like, you don't.
Agree with that. I mean, he is not going to be.
I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be decent because I think even with the whole, like, the match stuff, even with Barkley and the golf, I think he has the ability to be funny. But no, I mean, if Fox really wanted to throw that kind of money at somebody, if they would do it, I mean, obviously, I think Peyton Manning would be fantastic. I think even a guy like Phillip Rivers, who's just a nut, would be decent or
Mhm.
or whoever. But like this idea that Tom Brady's going to come in and be, he could be Drew Brees. I mean, Drew Brees is a Hall of Fame quarterback. He sucked.
He was so
Like,
bad they was just launched after 1 year.
like
Just
he,
to
like,
see ya.
yeah,
Yeah.
like Greg Olson, smart guy, like knows the league. He's still like recently retired, and I think Kevin Burkhardt I think he's pretty good. Like,
Okay.
I don't think but I was going to talk, it's not even just Fox, like CBS, their second team, Ian Eagle and Charles Davis. I think they're pretty good.
I agree
Like,
with that. I was going to have them as my 5 ahead of Burkhardt and Olsen. I was going to have Ian Eagle.
I think they're good. I'm not going down to like Steve Levy and Brian Greasy, although he's coaching.
No.
Like, I'm not going, but like,
If I were to rank the top 150 broadcast teams in the history of the NFL, I think Steve Levy, Brian Greasy, and Booger McFarland would be the absolute last. I told you, I must have texted you every time over the last few years when Steve Levy called an NFL game. I was like, he just called that a 25-yard run, and it was like a 9-yard run. He just said, some guy tackled him, and I was like, that guy hasn't been in the league for 2 years. Like, it was rough. But going through this list of broadcasters reassured me, hey, if there is more, standalone broadcasts on Thanksgiving week and on Christmas week when the NFL's trying to expand even more, I think it's in pretty good hands with the broadcast crews they have.
And even Black Friday. I mean, if they really wanted to, for crying out loud, they put a game on Nickelodeon. Like, people are going to watch. Like,
there are eyeballs.
Are they? I mean, do they? I mean, do they just really go off the rails and do a Manning cast only? Like, just watch them talk? Do we watch the game with Pat McAfee?
No,
like,
that's what I was thinking too.
I mean, it's Black Friday. Like, people are like, if you advertise it as something like fun and people aren't expecting like a buttoned up like production, like I think you could be kind of creative with it. And again, if the commentating blows, won't be the first time, won't be the last, and guess what? People still watch.
That's the point. The business is booming, and we'll see how many games Amazon adds to the holiday schedule over the next couple seasons.
Could be Sean McVay.
We'll get to that later. It's gonna be Sean McVay. Let's head over to your Jack in the Bum of the Week, America's favorite segment. Everybody loves this on TikTok. You're killing it with your Jack in the Bum of the Week because people just love to bag on somebody. And like in the NFL lately, there's been a lot of people who's deserved it. We crap on Russell Wilson every week. He's a candidate yet again this week. The Saints offense mustered nothing against your Niners. Ravens defense with that complete collapse in the fourth quarter. And then the Bucs offense, which did nothing in the second half with so many opportunities to just put that game away. But Jack in the Bum of the Week time, you're going with one of your favorites.
We're going with one of the all-time favorites for Jack in the Bum of the Week. And as Erik said, thank you for all you fellow bums out there who listen to this Jack in the Bum of the Week segment. And as you said, let's start with the honorable mention. Could have gone Russell Wilson. Again, as much as I kind of say I don't love to pick him every week, or at least think about picking him every week, it is kind of getting repetitive. No longer can go with the Raiders. Shout out to them. Big win.
Yeah.
Could have gone with any of the ones you said, but we're going with, and I'm not even going to say, Jack in the Bum of the Week. It's not a jumbo Jack because this person's not jumbo. In fact, he's quite the opposite. We're going with Kyler Murray. Jack in the Bum of the Week. Maybe call it a minor Jack. But we're
Junior
not calling
Jack.
it Junior Jack. Kyler Murray, former Oakland A's legend for about a week. Kyler Murray lost another game, said another dumb thing at the podium. What did he say? I think he said, I think schematically, we're fucked.
Yeah.
That is directly at Cliff Kingsbury, who, for some reason, you guys both have the same agents and both signed extensions. And like, what is going on? Like, Cliff can pick you. Kyler, would you have been the first overall pick if he didn't get hired and pick you?
No
I
way.
mean, they passed on Nick Bosa for that. I don't. That's not where. Why is it again? Same thing. You could copy and paste what I said about Zach Wilson last week and say it this week, and you could copy and paste what I said about Aaron Rodgers and apply it to Kyler Murray. Why is it never your fault, Kyler? Why is it never your fault? Could make the Call of Duty jokes, but we're not. again, you lost another home game. They're terrible at home. And
horrendous. And I believe their point differential at home is -66, which is like, even Houston is probably better than that. It's for whatever reason, they just cannot play well at home. And it's because he's sulking. There's no fan atmosphere.
Go back to the body language again. This is a body language podcast. Awful. Like it's Aaron Rodgers. Like it's, and you don't get to do that. If what have you won? I heard it today on Fox on that show that Emmanuel Acho's on, and he kind of took my thunder. He did a whole Jack in the Bum of the Week thing on Kyler, and I was like, oh, okay, fine, I'll take your point. He compared him to Baker Mayfield. What? Baker Mayfield won a playoff game. What have you done, Kyler? You looked horrible in your playoff game. Horrible.
Mm-hmm.
They gave you all this money. Granted, you could point the finger at errors like the organization. Why are you giving them this money if you don't even like them? Because clearly they didn't. They wouldn't have made that public with the,
the homework provision,
the homework clause. Homework.
We talk about homework.
Yeah, we're talking about like, you can't be that arrogant. Like you said, we like schematically, like we were fucked. Well, did you call an audible, a timeout? Like, do you have no power? Like you could have done something. Like, I don't know. He doesn't want to get hit anymore. I was he healthy? I don't know. Did he feel the pressure to play? It sounds like, they might have said you're going to play this week, because the smarter thing, or what people were talking about, because they have their bye next week. Like, why don't you just say hamstring, give him another rest? Like,
you can't do that when
like we trust Colt McCoy.
Yeah.
Well, I think they might have thought like, I mean, do they really think like we might be better with Colt McCoy? Like
they thought that prior to the Niner game.
And like, did they just say like, dude, you're not going to sit here. Like, you're going to play. Like, get out there and play. Like, we paid you all this money. It's a home game. Fans buy your jersey. Like, it's bad. Again, it's not like Russell Wilson in terms of like, you trade all this. Like, he was drafted by them, but it's like, what are they going to do? Because he's not a franchise guy. He's not. I hate people. He's like, oh, Kyler Murray's top 10, top 5. Is he? Like, like people think he's way more talented than a guy like Jalen Hurts. I'd take 10 Jalen Hurts over one Kyler Murray.
I think if you ask everybody at Oklahoma too, they would say the same thing, because they went from Kyler Murray, who won the Heisman, to Jalen Hurts. I believe they won more games with Hurts, despite him putting up stats that weren't even remotely comparable to Kyler's. But he was named a captain immediately. He transferred from Alabama to Oklahoma, and within a couple months of being on that team, everybody's like, Jalen Hurts is that dude. And you never heard that from Kyler in college, despite him putting up video game numbers. So, yeah, there's another inductee into the Jack in the Bum Hall of Fame with Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, he could be Jack in the Bum, because he could be a
first ballot. Absolutely.
Looking forward to another Hard Knocks. As you
That's
said,
the first thing I texted you when that game ended, after Staley went for 2 and got it. I was like,
I was a little disappointed in last week's with the Niner one, because I was hoping to kind of hear more like stuff like trash talking, like hear some of the players or like anything.
Oh, I did see that one. And Budda Baker is like such a likable dude. He's just like trying to keep everybody positive. He's like, I'm tired of losing. And you're like, give me more Kyler sulking and Cliff yelling.
I wanted more like, did Cliff come over there and like yell at somebody? The one thing they did is they profiled this one guy. His last name Hamilton. I forgot his first name. He's a Arizona defensive back. He had this like thing in training camp where he like, crazy thing happened in his kitchen where he burned his leg and stuff. And last week he had his first pick. I think he's been in the league like 7 years. He had his first pick, and he was like, all happy, and it's all heartwarming story, right? And then they proceed to watch him getting torched by like, he was the one guy on the Kittle last touchdown that made the business decision, and they were just kind of getting him on that. He also, on one of the Elijah Mitchell, it was a toss to the left, and he was the corner cut that Juszczyk picked off, and he blocked him like 5 yards into out of bounds. It's just like, and he kept going to the bench. They kept showing him like his number 33. He's like, 33. You can't do that. We got to be better. 33. Like, can't go. And then he got burned on one of the I think one of the Ayuk touchdowns, he made a mistake in coverage or something, and he goes back and it's kind of like a defensive back meeting on the sideline. He's like, the coach is like, we got to be better, and he's like, it was me, coach, it was me, like Mr. Like, oh, it's almost like over accountability. Like it was me. I got to be better. He's just like, they ran all this like right after the showed his family, like nice family, look at him overcoming adversity, got his first pick, and then it's like burned,
bam,
literally
NFL.
and figuratively.
Yeah. Oof. All right, let's take a look at week 13. We've recapped week 12. We've given out your jack in the bum of the week. Looking at the lines for next week, it starts on Thursday with Buffalo at New England and Buffalo -5.5. That's a sneaky good game. I think you think New England's a little bit better than the public perception and that Buffalo's a little bit worse. I would be on Buffalo if I had to bet that game. You would probably be on New England at that number.
Yeah.
At home.
I still think, at home, there's something up with Buffalo, and I think New England is better than people think. And Buffalo, there's something because they're also, I believe I looked today, they're 0-2 in the division. I know they lost to Miami, and they lost to the Jets. So maybe there's something the teams that see them twice a year see that they're picking on. I don't know.
Pat's got to have that one if they intend to make the playoffs. So they'll probably throw the kitchen sink in that game. Another one, Jacksonville at Detroit. Nobody's going to watch that game. Nobody cares. But Detroit -1 stood out to me. I thought they would be -3 or 3.5 in that game. Trevor Lawrence has what might have been his first or second great game in the NFL, and we're like, oh, here comes Jacksonville. No, not for me. I'm on Detroit -1 there, and you like that too.
Yeah, Detroit, you don't get any moral victories in the league, but having a game against Buffalo on Thanksgiving, like, kind of feel like, wow, we probably should have won. Is a step in the right direction. And
I think without the Williams fumble, they might have won that game. They were
they missed a chip shot field goal. I mean, I remember when the schedule came out, people were like, another terrible Lions game on Thanksgiving.
That was a great game.
It's fantastic. I think Detroit. Plus, Detroit's got the Rams pick too, so they're only going to get better.
Absolutely. Things are looking up there in Detroit after a really rough start to the season. Jets at Vikings. Vikings are -3. I hate to say it, but I do like the Vikings there with extra rest. I thought it would be more than 3 points. I think that's more of they think Mike White's pretty good. They think the Vikings secondary is pretty bad. And they think that the Jets defense is pretty good. So they're basically putting it at what they put it for the New England game. I lean Vikings there. What do you think?
Probably, but I think it's going to be close.
Shocking, a Vikings game being close.
I like the Jets defense is pretty good, and clearly Mike White's a hell of a lot better than Zach Wilson. And
pitched a perfect game last week. Granted, it was against the Bears, but Mike White, what a freaking performance. That guy comes on in relief of other people like nobody's fucking business. If you give him the starting job, it's rough. But if you bring him in mid-season for like one game, people are like, that's our dude.
Yeah, I think it'll be close, but I would still probably take Minnesota.
The Niners are -3.5 at home against Miami. I don't really have a play one way or another there. I thought that was basically the perfect line because obviously the Niners should be favored at home. But, the Dolphins, playing really, really well, especially on the offensive side of the ball. If I was going to bet on that game, and I'm going to be in Vegas next weekend, so I will be betting on that game, I'm going to bet the over. Because the Niners, I feel like they've been saving some offensive plays for that game, knowing that Mike McDaniel
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's
46.5.
It's by far the toughest team the Niners will play the rest of the way. It's also the one that matters the least. I mean, they're all big, it's the NFL, but being in the AFC, like really good. Like, if they lost, it wouldn't be a horrible loss unless catastrophic injuries or somehow blow a lead. Which I don't think they're going to have some big giant lead against this team because Miami's really good. I think the whole coaching thing on both sides, they know everything about everybody on this team. Raheem Mostert today, Jeff Wilson Jr. taking some shots at the Niners, and Debo said, Raheem, as the kids would say, stop capping. Heard that one. So yeah,
Oof. We're getting
I'm
old, man.
very old, and some people like to remind me all the time.
Yeah.
Um,
I see
but
that on TikTok all the time, no cap, and I'm like, God, I gotta Google
dude,
it. Shit.
you don't know how long I was actually saying no hat.
Oh, we're so old, dude.
Like I was like, what is all the hats? Like, like I don't get it. And
It's always someone bragging about themselves, and then every comment is like the hat emoji. And I
yeah,
didn't get it until probably 3 months ago. I was like, oh, cap. Okay,
I was
got
like,
it.
oh, okay, I get it what it means now, but no, it doesn't. Still doesn't make sense. But I actually know what it means, but it doesn't make sense.
Probably the
And
game of the week next week is Kansas City at Cincinnati. Kansas City -2.5. My
that is a big
thinking
one.
there is, yeah, I want Kansas City because it's Andy Reid against Zach Taylor in December. Give me Andy Reid all day long, no matter how good Burrow is. So I'm taking a look at that one. You like Seattle -4.5 at the Rams because Rams are just toast.
Rams suck.
Whose house?
Whose
Not
house?
theirs.
They're renting it. Everyone else lives there. Yeah, I
A lot of
mean, I
guests
heard today
over every weekend.
Aaron Donald might be shut down. High ankle sprain. The cup is done. Matthew Stafford's wife's going on social media saying my husband can't take too many more hits to the head. Like he might be done. Sean McVay's probably mulling over offers from Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who's invested in this season? They just won the Super Bowl. Like, why are those guys, as competitive as they are, gonna gear up for the rest of this season?
It's like in the NBA when everybody was like, God, at some point the bill is going to come due for the Warriors, and it hasn't because of the way the NBA is set up. The way the NFL is set up with the salary cap and all that. I mean, the Rams are paying dearly for what
like
they did over the last
you
5
could use
seasons.
the Rams as a case study for why and why not to go all in. The same
Right.
team, like they won the Super
Yeah.
Bowl. Like, so you're like, okay, we'll use that formula from teams like we'll get this player X, Y, and Z, and we're going to put us over the top. But again, like I said, if they don't have that one play to Cooper Kupp against Tampa to avoid that collapse in the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
if Jaquiski Tart catches the goddamn ball on an arm punt, like, and if Aaron Donald doesn't make a Hall of Fame play, like Jamar Chase torched that guy on that play,
Yeah.
like we're talking about a team that just missed it and now is going to pay for it for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, unless somehow McVay goes to Amazon and they get Sean Payton in there and Matt Stafford,
No.
doesn't need Tommy John and figures it out. Aaron Donald doesn't submit his retirement papers for the second year in a row.
With the way that NFC West is shaping up right now, I mean, either the Seahawks find a young quarterback for the future or Geno plays like he's been playing this year for multiple years. It's the Niners division to lose. The Seahawks may compete, but the Rams
Seattle's they're going to
toast.
have the Denver Hall. They're going to have a
Right.
couple high picks, but
It's looking good for the Niners for the long term, man, for sure. The Rams are absolute toast. Let's take one quick look around the other stuff going on in the sports world before we do my You Like That 5 picks of the week and your Feels Great Baby, your wildest take you feel best about at the moment. I'll do a quick World Cup update. I have watched every game through the beauty of YouTube TV. Wherever I go, I can watch all the key plays from the game. It takes the game and condenses it. So I've been able to watch every important moment in every game. It's been awesome. Some early storylines. Every team has now played 2 games, so every team now has 1 game left in the group stage before we get to the knockout round. Only France and Portugal and Brazil have made it to the knockout round to this point. The U.S. plays Iran tomorrow, and they have to win. If it's a loss or a draw, they are out. But if they win, they're in, and they will likely play the Netherlands in the round of 16. That game against England, I was waiting for James and his what happened to England. I mean, you want to talk about
okay. I want to let you finish, but that leads into what I was going to say because I have takes about
a lot of TikToks
football,
this week.
Football, or as we call it, soccer. It's called soccer. That's a pretty good chant. Not gonna lie, it's called soccer. But anyways, go finish your thing, and then I I was waiting for we could skip the other sports because nothing happened in hockey. The wheels have come off again for the Sharks.
The game against England. So the lead up was, and I follow English soccer more than most Americans. I'm a big Tottenham Hotspur fan. I know all the good English players in the Premier League. And I was like seeing all these threads where it's like England fans going, your best player, he would be 4th or 5th in the pecking order on our team. Like Pulisic
that's a pretty good accent.
You know, that's all they're saying, man. It's literally like, you know, your 5 best players wouldn't even make our top 23 roster that flies to the World Cup. And then not only was it 0-0 and the U.S. got a point against a team that's significantly better than them, the U.S. played better than England did in that game and had many more chances at goal than England did. I believe England had 2 shots. Granted, our goalie, Matt Turner, who's from New Jersey, who only started playing soccer when he was 17 years old, he was fucking lights out back there. And then the team put together a bunch of good chances. I thought Pulisic had the best chance of the game. He probably should have scored late on. I think it was like 83rd, 84th minute. But the team looked really good, which was awesome. But it was more like just rooting against England after all of that bullshit all week about how, like, oh my God, your guys wouldn't even sniff our roster. It's like, dude, I saw a game where the Stars and Stripes were probably better. It was pretty wild.
Okay. I got takes.
Oof.
So I did watch that because I was like, you know what? I'm excited. Soccer is a big freaking deal. Like I watched the entire game, England, USA.
Mm-hmm.
And as somebody who probably is like a demographic they should probably get to watch their games, you know, being of the age, you know, I work from home. So like tomorrow I could watch the whole game. Like I don't have work, school. I honestly, I hate to say it, I feel like it was a giant waste of 2 hours. Like,
and you're not
agree
alone.
with you. I agree with you. Like they probably should have won. I outplayed them. Like everything you said, like it's great for the strategy, like getting a tie against England, like great. Like it was as they were saying on the broadcast, like this is a very positive result for the US in terms of the World Cup. I'm like, as a fan, unfortunately, this team has to wear the burden of like, make soccer fun in the US. Like a 0-0 tie in what is, they're saying like the biggest game in like, a 1-1 tie would have been better. A 2-2 tie would have been better. Like, there's no highlights. Like, you need to tell me I sat on the couch for 2 hours and the best thing was a ball off the crossbar? Like, I mean, it's cool. Like, I get it. Like,
right.
My sister played soccer, you know, in high school. Like, I understand the game. Like, not at the high, obviously the high level. Like, I get it. Like, I get this happens. Ties happen.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I'm just something. Like anything. Like
I feel like that's the sentiment among most people who like tuned in for that game who don't watch soccer regularly. Now, as someone who watches all the time, it was a pretty fucking boring game. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, you know, you see, like this morning there was a game. It was Ghana against South Korea, and it was 3-2, and it was just goals all over the place. There was a game. What was it? Serbia and Cameroon, 3-3, with just, I think, right out of the half, there were like 4 goals in 10 minutes, and it's just flying up and down. And you're like, this is super freaking exciting. If the U.S. game had been 3-3 and Pulisic had 2 incredible goals and Harry Kane had 2 awesome goals, we would be talking about, oh my God, I can't wait for the World Cup in 2026. I'm going to every game. And kids at home would be like, God, that looks really fun. And they'd pick up soccer and maybe they play for the U.S. at the 2034 World Cup. But when it's 0-0, it's like, God, it was so deflating, even though the result is good. And now all the U.S. has to do is win against Iran, who's not a very good team, and they get to move on. I get it. But yeah, it was a little bit of a letdown.
It's just like, what it's like highlights. Like, what are people going to like rewatch and like, okay, I don't know. Cause I was hoping, I'm like, hey, this is gonna be cool. Like, we're going to hear like the go or like,
and just not a lot happened. Some other storylines in the World Cup: Germany and Belgium have been absolutely trash. Those are the, I think, number 2 and number 6 ranked teams in the world, and they're both looking at getting dumped out before the knockout round. Germany got a late goal against Spain to tie it 1-1, but they lost to Japan in what was probably the most shocking result. Argentina lost to Saudi Arabia. We talked about that last week. That was shocking, but then they responded nicely with a big win against Mexico. And then the funniest part of the whole World Cup, Qatar spent supposedly $200 billion for all the things for the World Cup, developing players, developing stadiums, infrastructure for the airports, hotels, all this shit, $200 billion. And they're the very first team knocked out. They lost their first 2 games, hapless, hopeless, the shit kicked out of them in both those games. And now they play the Netherlands, who they're going to get crushed by again. Qatar, what happened?
That sounds like Monopoly money.
Ugh. Yeah, it doesn't even seem like a real number. And after all that, they got nothing to show for it. Yeah, absolute disaster. Big games coming up this week, and then the knockout round starts on Saturday. Also on Saturday, college football's conference championship games. I'm going to be in Vegas, so I'm definitely going to bet on those. Trying to look at the scenarios here that would cause some mayhem. Do you think a 1-loss Ohio State or 2-loss Bama would get in if, USC or TCU loses their game next week? Let's say TCU loses and they're 12-1.
Are you saying over like the team that loses? Are you saying like Alabama getting in over so if TCU lost the championship game, would they still get in?
That's what I'm wondering. Or say TCU wins and then USC loses. Do you think they put in 2-loss Bama or 1-loss Ohio State? Because Ohio State, I think, has fallen more than anybody over the last week and a half in the eyes of, the folks deciding who gets to be in those games.
As crazy as it sounds, God, I hope it would be Alabama. I just find it hilarious that if Georgia had an undefeated SEC champ #1 and they get Alabama in the first round of the college football playoff.
You have a perfect season in every possible way. The most perfect season we've seen since LSU in 2019, and you're rewarded with Bama in the first round. That'd be hilarious.
The thing is, USC is a big brand. Oh, kind of was, and is maybe trying to get to. TCU is not. If they lose, I think they're toast. Because part of this, sadly, for the teams is it's a TV product. And if TCU has the same record as Ohio State and they both don't win the conference, Ohio State's going.
Right.
even though they just got dog walked at home by Michigan.
That was I watched some of that game with my father-in-law in Colorado Springs, and both of us before the game were like, "Oh, Ohio State's going to crush them." No hope for Michigan, and Michigan controlled that game. It was incredible. Your boy Harbaugh, actually a pretty damn good coach.
They ran for 250 yards in the second half, and their running back he gave it a try, a play or two, and he was done. Blake Corum, and so Michigan, their Heisman Trophy conversation running back doesn't play. They go into the horseshoe and crush Ohio State. I mean, that's a tough look, but Ohio State does. I mean, their biggest, they had that monster win over Oregon in week 1, but that feels so long ago. And and with Oregon's loss to Oregon State, I mean, that loss just keeps getting worse. No, what am I talking? That was Georgia. What am I talking about? That was Georgia who killed them. No, Ohio State beat Notre Dame.
Right.
Week 1.
Which
looks worse.
Right.
But now, so I think Ohio State or Alabama would get in. I think it'd be tough to have a 2-loss team get in.
If LSU won last week against Texas A&M and then won against Georgia in the SEC title game, they would be a 2-loss SEC champion. They would have been in, but they blew it by losing last week. You can't let a 3-loss team in. But if you're the SEC champ, you have to be in. So, LSU.
If LSU winning, which like we said last week, which they won't. I mean, but if they did, they won't. I mean, that would cause major chaos, but I don't.
Yeah,
I think TCU beats Kansas State, who I believe they play.
Yeah.
And then I think Utah's got I think they have more of a chance of beating USC.
I agree.
Than Kansas State beating TCU. You could argue that Alabama lost 2 games, literally last play of the game, but still 2 losses. They also who knows what they have so many draft eligible players. Who's going to play?
Yeah, I circled Utah in that game against USC is something I want to bet on Saturday when I'm there in Vegas. Let's go over to my You Like That 5 picks of the week. We're 14-9-2 through week 12. We had a winning week last week. We went 3-2. We had Detroit, Miami, and Kansas City, who all covered. We also had Tennessee +2, which they lost by 4. It was close. And then Baltimore -4, who fumbled the bag at the end. We almost had a 5-0 week. So 3-2, we'll take it. We're 14-9-2. Pretty damn solid record through 5 podcasts. Here's our 5 picks for this week. Detroit -1. We're both on that. We like that at home against the Jags. Giants +1.5. They're at home against Washington. Washington has won, I believe, 4 in a row now. At some point, that's got to come crashing back to earth. I think Brian Daboll is, they covered last week against Dallas. It wasn't a great performance, but I think he's going to come into this one with that extra rest, a little motivated, and they're getting 1.5 at home against Washington, which you wouldn't have expected at all 2 or 3 weeks ago. You would have thought they would be 3-point favorites there. We're going to throw Seattle -4.5 in there. That's your pick. You're banking on either Stafford not playing or Stafford playing and it just being a meek performance with the, skeleton roster that the Rams have, right?
Yeah, I still think Seattle, now they gave up 40 to the Raiders, but they still scored 30. Yeah, problem. They still scored 34. As much as I would like to see the Rams win, help the Niners, I don't think Seattle's going to have this like okay, they're coming back to earth. Like I don't see it. I think they're still going to make the playoffs.
At the expense of Washington, I would agree.
I still think they make the playoffs and yeah, the Rams. I thought about it. I was like, how do they even practice this? How do they even go to practice? Like, what are we even doing?
Nobody wants to be there.
Like, they lost Allen Robinson. I know he wasn't even getting the ball thrown to him, that he's done for the year. Like,
it is a skeleton crew in LA right now. Pick number 4, Kansas City -2.5. We both thought that was a short number at Cincinnati, given the massive coaching advantage. And then Mahomes, who's just on fire right now. And by the way, has never lost in November and December. It's going to happen at some point, but like the guy is an absolute machine late in the year, and so is Andy Reid. So we're going Kansas City -2.5 in that one. And then you like Dallas -9.5 against Indy. They could have put any number up, and you would like Dallas there. You have them higher in your power ratings than most.
Definitely. And I worked for us last week, picking Kansas City and
Miami.
Huge numbers. Although Miami decided to call the dogs off and nearly blew it, but
we got there with the cover.
So again, the Colts suck. I don't even have the game on, but just saw Colts just lost to Pittsburgh. So it's in Dallas.
Line's going up. Yeah.
The overpaid, expensive offensive line that Jeff Saturday inherited is going to get blown off the ball by Dallas, and Matt Ryan is going to pay for it.
Yeah, that's going to be rough. Okay, here's our you like that 5 picks of the week. Detroit -1 at home against Jacksonville. The Giants at home against Washington +1.5. Seattle -4.5 at the Rams. Kansas City -2.5 at Cincinnati. And Dallas -9.5 at home on Sunday Night Football against Indianapolis. Joey, it's time for your Feels Great Baby, your wildest take you feel best about. And you want to talk about something medical related this week that you think is going to sweep the NFL.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I feel great about it because it's going to be at the expense of some players and it's going to be something no one wants to see, people getting hurt. But the rumors about, Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford have me thinking that we're going to start to see a very obvious increase in arm injuries, specifically Tommy John. With the amount of throwing that's starting now in high school and in college and in the pros, and the amount of baseball background some of these guys have with Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, I'm sure Stafford played baseball. I mean, we keep hearing about how good friends he is with Clayton Kershaw. I'm sure he played baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say like Tom Brady played, but he's so like if he had Tommy John, he'd just retire. It doesn't, right. And the way these guys, it's not even just how many times they throw, but like the arm angles, it's cool. Like when it works and like Josh Allen, some of these guys have the huge like wind up and and
Right.
chuck it. I think you're going to start to see an influx of Tommy John, and it's unfortunate because they're going to miss 2 whole seasons probably if it happened.
Right. We heard that this was 3 weeks ago before the Vikings-Bills game. Everybody was saying, hey, it's on the table for Josh Allen. And that would mean he would miss probably all of next season as well if he got that procedure. And he really, obviously, he's been very good. He always is, but he hasn't been the same since he was diagnosed with that UCL sprain or whatever it is in his. I feel like this is something that, with how often young kids, middle school, high school, are throwing the ball, this seems like something that could be a long-term problem for a lot of the quarterbacks in the league. It seems like every time a quarterback is doing one of those long bombs and then gets his hand like stopped by a helmet of the opposing player, just that recoil, you're like, God, that's like if Mariano Rivera was throwing a cutter and then got hit in the middle of it. Like, obviously that would jack up your elbow. So you're worried about that long term for NFL QBs.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think it's something to keep an eye on. I mentioned the high ankle sprains, is like the trendy injury, but I think some of these quarterbacks are going to get start to feel the repercussions of throwing the ball 50 times ever since they've been 11 years old.
Yeah, no more wing T anymore. It's a spread offense. Even in middle school, it's getting a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Before we close the pod, anything going on for you this week? Anything happened last week you want to talk about outside of sports? I'm definitely gonna talk about my upcoming Vegas trip. But what about you? What's going on?
Oh, nothing too much. Thanksgiving was good.
Nice.
Didn't stuff my face too hard. But yeah, ate a lot of dark meat turkey.
You're damn right.
You know what's hilarious though is we talked last week. I don't think they listened to the podcast, but I kind of took a dump on the white turkey meat and said like you give people the white meat part of the turkey that relatives you don't like. We got sent home with like an incredible amount of white meat turkey.
Roasted.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I don't think you heard this part. I don't think you listened, but noted.
Yeah, my mom texted me about that. She's like, I like the white meat. I'm like, yeah, there's some people who do, but
okay, Mom, I don't like you.
I was given the leg at my in-laws' Thanksgiving, and man, was it good. Got to go with dark meat always. I will defend that to my dying breath. Dark meat over white meat any day. Yeah, I'm going to Vegas, man. I'm excited. We're leaving on Saturday, coming back late Monday night. Going to have 4 World Cup or 6 World Cup knockout games while I'm there, all round of 16. We're going to have college conference championship games. We're going to have NFL Week 13. All of that stuff to bet on and watch. I'm excited. Going to play a lot of poker. I'm playing in a tournament at Caesar's Palace on Saturday at 9.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Last time I played, I finished 3rd out of like 40
I'm way
people.
too intimidated to do that.
I've had success at poker tournaments in Vegas. Like,
it's not really like if I win or lose. It's more of like they're so like I don't know. Like I know etiquette, but like, am I gonna know it? Like what if I just like I don't know, my hands are in the wrong place on the table or something. And they're like,
they
are you
shoot
cheating?
you under the table. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, guys, never done this before. All right, chill out.
Yeah, the first time I went to Vegas, I think it was 2014 or 15, and I was worried. I was like nervous, like, oh my God, I'm 21 years old. Everybody's gonna be like, get this kid away from the table or whatever. Once I played a few tournaments, I was like, okay, I get what you got to do. You got to be respectful when you clean someone's clock and take $200 off of them or whatever. But
you just scream like, "Oh my God,
what a fucking idiot!"
No, you say something like, "Oh my God, I'm totally gonna buy like the new Call of Duty." Like this guy's people are like paying, like I don't know, their kids' college or something, and you just say, "Oh my God, I'm gonna go to In-N-Out and get like 8 double doubles."
Yeah, don't do that. But yeah, we'll play a poker tournament at we're staying at Nobu Hotel, which is inside Caesars. They got a good sports book there, so I'm gonna place my sports bets. I'm gonna play some blackjack and pie gow. I'm going to play a poker tournament. And then Jamie and I got some cool dinners lined up. We're going to a show called Absinthe at Caesars. Packed weekend. Vegas is like my favorite place, man. I'm excited to be going. And it's a little celebration for my 30th, which was a couple weeks ago, but we delayed the trip a little bit. I'm pumped, man. I hope I don't lose too much money by betting on our 5 picks of the week, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, if you bet our picks, you're gonna come back rich. So
that's for fucking sure. 14-9-2, baby. We cannot be stopped on this podcast. We'll be back next week for another episode, recording Tuesday next week, as I will be in Vegas. So we'll come out with that pod on Tuesday, hopefully after a couple more Vikings and Niners victories next week. We got to keep this thing rolling, man. We're both 4-1 since we started. Our picks are going well. I'm pumped. You're pumped. Another episode coming next week. See you next week.